My wife sold my truck while I was working offshore and cut off all contact. I thought it was about money, until I uncovered what she'd been hiding for months. That's when I stopped reacting and started preparing, because she had no idea what was coming next. Before I tell you how a single decision unraveled a marriage, take a moment to support my story, subscribe to the channel and drop a comment about where you're watching from. It helps these stories reach the people who need them most. My name is Mason Hale. I'm 41 years old, and for the last 12 years I've worked offshore oil rigs in the Southern Gulf. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Long hours, hard labor, good money. The kind of job that keeps food on the table but slowly stretches the distance between you and everything you're working for. The driveway should have had my truck in it. A gray 2019 heavy-duty pickup. Not flashy, not new, but paid off. I bought it outright after my first big contract, the day I finally felt like all those missed holidays meant something. That truck had been in that spot every time I came home. Until now. I stood there longer than I needed to, staring at the empty concrete like maybe it would reappear if I looked hard enough. It didn't. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from my wife, Lila, sent hours earlier while I was still offshore. I sold the truck. We needed the money. That was it. No explanation. No conversation. No waiting for me to get home. I called her immediately. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Same result. The third time, the call didn't even ring. I checked my messages. My number was blocked. That's when my stomach tightened. I didn't yell. I didn't kick anything. I opened my banking app instead. Our joint checking account looked normal. Savings untouched. That didn't add up. If she sold the truck because we needed money, where was it? I pulled up the vehicle title registry. It took less than a minute to confirm what I already feared. The truck had been sold 3 days earlier. Private sale. $21,800. Buyer wasn't a dealership. It was an individual, living nearly 2 hours away in a mountain town north of us. She hadn't just sold it. She'd planned it. I sat on the front steps to steady myself. My neighbor walked past with his dog, eyes forward, pace quick. When I asked if he'd seen anything unusual, he shook his head without stopping. Too fast. He'd seen something. He just didn't want to be involved. Inside the house, the silence felt wrong. Not peaceful. Hollow. Lila's closet was missing half her clothes. Her makeup drawer was empty. The coffee machine I bought her last Christmas was gone. Even the good snacks she always insisted on keeping stocked were missing. This wasn't impulse. This was an exit. I called the bank. They confirmed a cash withdrawal from our joint account 3 days earlier. $4,900. ATM location 2 hours north. I was offshore at the time. Couldn't have been me. I sat at the kitchen table and didn't move for a long time. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. 1 line of text. She's been planning this for a while. I didn't respond. I went into my home office and pulled out every document we had, insurance papers, mortgage files, vehicle records. I read slowly, carefully. I had 2 full weeks off. Time was finally on my side. Lila and I met 9 years earlier at a bar near the old district. She was bartending. I'd just come off my first long rig contract, sunburned, exhausted, pockets full of cash and bad habits. She laughed easily. Said she didn't mind the grease under my nails. We married a year later. Small ceremony. Her parents. My brother. That was it. I worked. She stayed home. That was the agreement. I paid for everything. She managed the house, the bills, the groceries. I trusted her because I had to. I was gone half the month. We never had kids. She said she wasn't ready. I said I could wait. Eventually we stopped talking about it altogether. Things shifted slowly. She stopped texting while I was offshore. No pictures. No updates. When I asked, she said she was busy. Then she started going out more, girls' nights with a friend named Mara. I never met Mara. When I asked questions, Lila accused me of not trusting her. Money started feeling tight even though it shouldn't have. I brought home good money. No debt except the mortgage. Still, she said life was expensive. I believed her. 2 months before the truck disappeared, she asked me to add her name to the title. Said it would make things easier if something happened to me offshore. It sounded reasonable. I signed. That decision would cost me more than the truck. I called my brother Evan that night. He hesitated before speaking, then admitted he'd seen Lila in that mountain town weeks earlier, at a restaurant, with another man. He hadn't said anything because he didn't want to be wrong. The buyer's name from the title transfer took me 10 minutes to find online. Public profile. There he was, smiling in front of my truck. My truck. Posted the same day it was sold. Big thanks to a friend for the hookup. I scrolled further. Photos of him and Lila together. Going back months. Bars. Road trips. In one photo, his arm was around her waist like it belonged there. This wasn't sudden. This was coordinated. I screenshotted everything and saved it to a cloud folder. Labeled it, Records. Then I called the insurance company. They told me Lila had removed me as the primary driver 2 weeks earlier and claimed I sold the truck myself. She had all the paperwork. That's when I found the burner phone hidden in her nightstand. Unlocked. Hundreds of messages. Talking about selling the truck. Calling me clueless. Calling me a paycheck. Talking about moving out of state. Talking about how I'd never know because I was always gone. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. I didn't confront her. I didn't warn her. I borrowed my brother's car and drove straight to a lawyer's office. And that was the moment everything stopped being emotional and started becoming precise. I didn't feel angry driving to the lawyer's office. That surprised me. I felt clear. Focused. Like something had finally snapped into place. All the excuses I'd made for Lila over the years lined up neatly in my head and collapsed under their own weight. The law office sat in a low brick building near downtown Mesa. No glass towers, no flashy signs. Just a small plaque by the door. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and paper. The woman I met with was named Carmen Reyes. Mid-40s. Calm eyes. The kind of person who listens more than she speaks. I laid everything out. The truck. The blocked number. The secret sale. The burner phone. The screenshots. The cash withdrawals. I expected questions, maybe doubt. Instead, she nodded and took notes like she'd seen this story before. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. You didn't confront her, she said. No, I replied. Good. You didn't tip your hand. She explained things plainly. What Lila had done wasn't just betrayal, it was fraud. Unauthorized sale of marital assets. Concealment of funds. Misrepresentation to insurance. If we moved quickly, we could freeze accounts and lock things down before she finished draining them. I signed the retainer without hesitation. That night, I sent Lila one message. Just 3 words. All good here. Then I stopped communicating entirely. Within 48 hours, Carmen filed for divorce and submitted an emergency motion to freeze our joint accounts. She attached screenshots, bank records, and the vehicle sale documentation. The court granted the freeze the same day. Lila didn't know yet. But she would. I went back offshore 2 days later. The rig felt the same as always, metal, salt, noise, but something inside me had shifted. My phone buzzed constantly. Missed calls. New numbers. Emails. Even a message through an old gaming account I hadn't used in years. Every message said the same thing. We need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. You're overreacting. I ignored all of it. Carmen updated me daily. Lila had called her office repeatedly, angry, panicked. When she finally got through, Carmen told her to get her own attorney. She did. Someone cheap. That told me everything I needed to know about how much money she actually had left. I started digging deeper. I pulled credit card statements going back a year. Hotels. Restaurants. Fuel charges in cities I'd never been to with her. Weekend trips she said were spa retreats or weddings. I matched dates to my offshore schedule. Every charge lined up with when I was gone. I hired a private investigator named Nolan. Expensive, but efficient. I gave him the buyer's name from the truck sale, the social media posts, and the dates. I told him to follow the paper trail. He called me 4 days later. The man wasn't random. He worked at the same bar where Lila and I met years earlier. They'd reconnected months ago. He knew I existed. He knew I worked offshore. Nolan had photos. Timestamps. Proof. Lila tried one last time to reach me directly. She showed up at the house while I was home. I watched through the window as she stood on the porch. She knocked. Then pounded. Then cried. She said she made a mistake. She said he meant nothing. She said she'd pay the truck money back. I didn't open the door. After an hour, she left. I sent one final text. Your lawyer can speak to mine. Then I blocked her. Carmen escalated. She filed an emergency motion requesting full reimbursement of all misused funds, sole ownership of the house, and coverage of legal fees. She attached over 100 pages of evidence. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. I flew home the day before. Carmen walked me through everything. She said Lila's attorney would try to paint me as distant, controlling, emotionally absent because of my job. She said the judge wouldn't care. The facts are clean, she said. You didn't retaliate. You documented. The courtroom was small. Quiet. Lila sat across from me, thinner than I remembered, eyes fixed on the table. Her lawyer shuffled papers nervously. Carmen presented first. The truck sale. The hidden account. The cash withdrawals. The apartment rental I never knew about. The misrepresentation to insurance. 30 minutes. No drama. Just facts. When it was their turn, Lila's lawyer talked about loneliness. About emotional neglect. About how I abandoned the marriage by working offshore. The judge listened. Then turned directly to Lila. Did you sell your husband's vehicle without his consent? Yes. Did you hide the proceeds in a private account? Yes. Did you use joint funds to support another relationship? Lila cried. She said she was unhappy. She said she deserved to be happy. The judge nodded once. Happiness does not justify fraud. She recessed for 10 minutes. When she returned, she didn't sit down. She ordered full reimbursement of the truck value. Full repayment of unauthorized spending. All legal fees assigned to Lila. Sole ownership of the house transferred to me. 30 days for Lila to vacate. The gavel came down. Lila didn't move. Her lawyer whispered to her, but she stared straight ahead, frozen. I shook Carmen's hand and walked out. I didn't celebrate. I didn't call anyone. I went home and sat on the couch in the quiet house and felt something settle. A week later, Lila emailed me. Apologized. Said the other man left when the money stopped. Said she had nowhere to go. Asked if we could work it out. I deleted it. I bought a new truck. Cash. Title in my name only. Months later, I learned the other man had been arrested on an old fraud warrant. Someone tipped off the police. I didn't ask who. 8 months after the divorce, Lila still hadn't paid. Carmen filed for wage garnishment. The court approved it. 20% of every paycheck would come to me until the debt was cleared. I sold the house and bought a smaller place closer to the airport. 1 bedroom. 1 garage. Quiet. 2 years passed. I worked. I traveled. I slept better than I had in years. And every month, without fail, the court deposit arrived, silent proof that some plans collapse the moment the truth catches up. Time did something strange after the court ruling. It didn't rush. It didn't drag either. It moved steadily, like a current you don't notice until you're already far from where you started. I went back offshore 2 months after everything was finalized. Same rig. Same crew. Same schedule. But I wasn't the same man who had left weeks earlier. I wasn't checking my phone every hour anymore. I wasn't replaying conversations in my head. The anger had burned itself out and left behind something calmer, heavier, more solid. Work helped. It always did. Out there, everything is simple. You do your job or someone gets hurt. There's no room for manipulation or half-truths. Steel doesn't care how you feel. It either holds or it doesn't. When I came home, the new place felt right. Smaller. Cleaner. Mine. No echo of arguments in the walls. No sense that I was waiting for someone else's mood to decide how the evening would go. I cooked for myself. I slept without waking up at 3 a.m. wondering what I'd missed while I was gone. The wage garnishment started 3 months later. I didn't feel satisfaction when the first deposit hit my account. I felt confirmation. The system had seen what she did and responded accordingly. Quietly. Permanently. I heard things through second-hand channels. Friends of friends. Old coworkers who still talked to her. She'd taken a job at a diner outside town. Minimum wage. Long hours. The court order followed her there. 20%, gone before she ever touched it. She tried to move again. New city. New start. Same order. The deductions followed her. They always do. I ran into her once by accident. A gas station off the highway. I didn't recognize her at first. She looked smaller somehow, like the confidence she used to wear had been stripped away piece by piece. She froze when she saw me. I nodded once and kept walking. She didn't say a word. I later learned the man she'd left with disappeared not long after the money dried up. He'd been using her as much as she'd been using me. When the easy path collapsed, he vanished. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel triumph either. I felt detached. Like watching the final scene of a movie you'd already made peace with ending. I focused on myself. Paid off my new place early. Started investing. Took trips during my off weeks. Montana. Wyoming. Alaska. Places where the air felt honest and the nights were quiet. I met someone new eventually. Not right away. I wasn't looking. It happened slowly. Her name was Erin. She worked logistics for a supply contractor we used offshore. Direct. Calm. No games. No stories that didn't line up. We took it slow. Separate lives, overlapping by choice instead of necessity. One night, sitting on my porch watching the sun drop behind the mountains, I realized something that surprised me. If Lila had asked for a divorce, I would have let her go. Clean. Simple. I wouldn't have fought. I wouldn't have tried to punish her. She didn't need to destroy things on her way out. She chose that path because she thought I'd never see it. She thought distance made her invisible. It didn't. 8 months later, Carmen called to tell me the balance was almost settled. Another year, maybe less, and the debt would be cleared completely. I thanked her. She told me it was one of the most straightforward cases she'd handled. People who plan exits forget about records, she said. Records remember everything. I never responded to Lila again. Not once. Not after the apologies. Not after the explanations. Silence wasn't punishment. It was closure. The truck in my driveway now isn't just transportation. It's a reminder. Not of what I lost, but of what I learned. Some people don't leave because they're unhappy. They leave because they believe they can take more than they gave. They're wrong. And eventually, quietly, without drama or shouting, the bill always comes due. Life has a way of testing whether you've really moved on or just learned how to avoid looking back. For me, that test came quietly, without warning, on an ordinary afternoon that should have meant nothing. I was back on land, 2 weeks into my off-rotation, fixing a loose cabinet hinge in the kitchen when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. I usually did. But something told me not to this time. It was Carmen. She didn't sound urgent, just thoughtful, the way someone does when they're calling to close a file that's been open for too long. I wanted you to hear this from me, she said. The court marked the debt as nearly satisfied. Another few payments and it's done. Completely. I thanked her. Again. Then she hesitated. There's something else, she added. Not legally relevant. Just something I thought you should know. I waited. Your ex tried to contest the garnishment last month. Claimed hardship. The judge denied it. Said the consequences were foreseeable. Foreseeable. That word stuck with me after the call ended. That evening, I went for a long drive. No destination. Just road and time. I passed the old neighborhood where the house used to be. Different cars in the driveway now. Kids' bikes scattered on the lawn. Laughter coming from somewhere inside. I didn't slow down. I didn't need to. Later that week, my brother Evan sent me a message. He'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Lila had moved back in with her parents. That the engagement she'd rushed into after the divorce had collapsed when the new guy found court records online. That her parents were furious. Not at me, at her. I read the message once and deleted it. I wasn't collecting updates anymore. The truth was, I didn't hate her. Hate takes energy. Attention. A connection. I didn't have any of that left to give. What I felt was distance. The kind that comes when someone no longer has access to your life. One afternoon, while organizing old files to shred, I found the original truck paperwork. The receipt from the day I bought it cash. I held it for a moment, then dropped it into the shredder and watched it disappear piece by piece. I didn't need proof anymore. Work shifted too. I moved to a different rig company, better pay, better rotation. 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. The extra time changed things. I traveled more. Learned to sit still without feeling like I was wasting time. That took practice. Erin stayed in my life, steady and uncomplicated. No pressure. No expectations disguised as favors. We talked openly about boundaries, money, time apart. Things I used to avoid. Things I used to think would cause conflict. Turns out, avoiding them caused more damage than discussing them ever could. One evening, sitting across from her at a quiet restaurant, she asked me something simple. Do you trust yourself now? I didn't answer right away. Yes, I finally said. More than I trust anyone else. She smiled. Not offended. Relieved. Another year passed. The final garnishment payment came through on a Tuesday morning. No notification fanfare. Just a deposit line item. The system doing what it had been designed to do. I stared at it for a long moment, then closed the app. That chapter was officially over. A few weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Lila's. I didn't open it right away. I set it on the counter and went about my day. Cooked. Worked out. Took a walk. When I finally opened it that night, it was short. She wrote that she was sorry. That she'd ruined her life chasing something easy. That she understood now what she'd thrown away. That she didn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted me to know she finally understood. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. I didn't respond. Understanding doesn't undo damage. It just explains it. Months later, I ran into her mother at a grocery store. She recognized me instantly. Her expression hardened, then softened, all in the space of a second. You didn't have to destroy her, she said quietly. I met her eyes. Calm. Steady. I didn't, I replied. I just stopped covering for her. She didn't argue. She turned and walked away. That was the last time anyone from that part of my life tried to pull me back into it. Now, when I come home from offshore, the driveway is full. Not with memories. With certainty. My truck. My place. My silence. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not confronting her directly, not yelling, not demanding explanations. I don't. Because confrontation is temporary. Records are permanent. Emotion fades. Documentation doesn't. And silence, when backed by facts, is louder than any argument. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it completely. And once you learn it, no one ever gets to take from you the same way again. Time has a way of flattening things. What once felt sharp and urgent eventually settles into perspective, and that's where the real ending of this story lives, not in courtrooms or bank transfers, but in quiet moments when you realize you're no longer carrying the weight you once thought was permanent. The year after the final payment passed was the first year of my adult life that felt truly mine. Not shared, not negotiated, not explained. Mine. I stopped measuring days by what had gone wrong and started measuring them by what felt right. That sounds small, but it isn't. It's the difference between surviving and living. I kept working offshore, but the work felt different now. I wasn't running from anything when I left, and I wasn't bracing myself when I came back. My off weeks were filled with things I chose instead of things I tolerated. Fishing trips that didn't need to be justified. Long mornings with no alarms. Even boredom felt peaceful instead of heavy. Aaron and I grew closer without forcing it. We didn't rush labels or plans. We let trust build the slow way, through consistency. Through showing up when we said we would. Through honesty that didn't need to be extracted. She never once asked me to change my schedule or prove my commitment with grand gestures. She respected the life I'd built, and that respect mattered more than she probably realized. One night, while sitting outside watching a storm roll in, she said something that stuck with me. "You don't talk about the past like it still owns you." She was right. It didn't. That didn't mean I forgot. Forgetting isn't the goal. Understanding is. I understood now how easy it is to miss warning signs when you confuse trust with avoidance. How silence can feel like peace until it's actually just distance growing unchecked. How being dependable can turn into being taken for granted if you never ask to be seen. I also understood something else, something quieter, but more important. What Lila did didn't break me. It revealed me. It showed me how I respond when things fall apart. Not with chaos. Not with shouting. But with clarity. With patience. With action taken at the right moment instead of emotion unleashed at the wrong one. People like to imagine strength as confrontation. As standing your ground and making noise. But real strength, I learned, often looks like restraint. Like letting the truth do the work while you step out of the way. I ran into Nolan, the private investigator, months later at a diner near the highway. He recognized me first. We talked briefly. Before we parted, he said something simple. "You handled it the right way. Most people don't." I nodded. I didn't need validation anymore, but it didn't hurt to hear it. As for Lila, the last update I ever heard came from someone I barely knew. She'd moved again. New city. New job. Same consequences following her. Reputation doesn't reset just because geography does. Patterns have a way of repeating themselves when lessons aren't learned fully. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. I felt acceptance. Because by then, my life no longer intersected with hers in any meaningful way. The past stopped showing up in my dreams. That's how I knew it was over. One afternoon, while cleaning out the garage, I found an old box tucked behind a shelf. Inside were reminders from before everything went wrong, photos, old work gear, receipts from early contracts. At the bottom of the box was a folded piece of paper I hadn't seen in years. A note Lila had written early in our marriage, back when things still felt simple. It talked about building a life together. About patience. About trust. I read it once. Then I let it go. People mean what they say in the moment they say it. But meaning doesn't guarantee permanence. Actions do. I closed the box, donated what was worth keeping, and threw the rest away. Not out of anger. Out of completion. There was one final moment that sealed everything. I was at the airport, waiting to board a flight back offshore, when a man sat down beside me and struck up a conversation. He noticed my boots, asked what line of work I was in. We talked for a few minutes. Then he said something offhand. "Must be hard being gone all the time. Bet it costs you." I thought about that for a second. "It used to," I said. "Not anymore." He nodded, like he understood, even if he didn't know why. As I boarded the plane, I realized something important. I wasn't defined by what I lost. I was defined by what I protected, my integrity, my future, my ability to trust myself. That's what carried me forward. Not bitterness. Not payback. Just a clean break and a life rebuilt with intention. Some people will always choose shortcuts. They'll confuse opportunity with entitlement and mistake silence for ignorance. But silence backed by truth is never empty. It's patient. And when it finally speaks, it doesn't need to raise its voice. I didn't win by taking anything from her. I won by refusing to let her take anything else from me. And that, I've learned, is the kind of ending that lasts. If my story resonated with you, take a moment to support the channel, like the video, subscribe, and share where you're watching from. Your engagement helps real stories like this reach others who need to hear them. And if you've ever faced betrayal and chose clarity over chaos, drop a comment below. I read them all.